Welcome to the coming apocalypse. Evangelist and pastor Paul Begley will take you on a journey into the end times prophecy. He'll examine current world events and explain how they relate to the end times. For decades, Pastor Begley has provided people all over the world with an understanding of today's world events from a biblical perspective. Now here's your host, Pastor Paul Begley.
Are you serious, guys? Welcome to the Coming Apocalypse. I'm Pastor Paul Begley, and boy, we've got a powerful broadcast for you today. We want to talk about the cashless society. I'm getting information yesterday from the ministers out of BBC News, and others are saying the cashless society is ready to go when somebody pushes the button. Who's going to push the button? So I thought, who in the world? Okay, so who makes this call? What they're saying is the technology is here. It's ready to go, and they can't leave anybody behind, just waiting for someone to give the command. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to bring in Bob Kudler. He is the man with the plan. I mean, we need somebody that can tell us what in the world is going on here. Bob, how you doing today?
I'm doing awful. I'm kidding.
You're in California. You can never do... Well, wait a minute. That's right. You're in California. It's beautiful there, I'm sure. It's a beautiful day.
I'm kidding. You're talking about the cashless society. You got me all upset now. So, yeah, I mean, we know who's gonna pull the trigger on that one, right? So, but you're talking more of an economic one.
Obviously, when the one world, the new world order, the beast kingdom is going to be a one world currency. But do you think that they start the process even before that? Do they get the wheels greased?
Yeah, they actually, it's already in process. So you talk about the technology being ready. It's been ready, and so now you're seeing they're testing different aspects of it around the world. So China has the social credit system, right? So the United States have been doing a different approach because they have to get around this pesky thing called the Constitution. So they've been outsourcing their ability to control the population through these private tech companies. So the latest of which is everybody is very familiar with what's happening in Canada with the GoFundMe, right? So look, the government can't go out there and say, well, you're doing X or Y because it violates Canada's Charter of Freedoms and also violates the United States First Amendment. But hey, you're with a private company, which we just basically told a private company to shut you down, which is violation of the Constitution. But hey, until people start enforcing these things, they're going to go for it. So they're using Twitter, they're using Facebook, they're using Visa. They're using Spotify. They're using GoFundMe. They're using PayPal. There was other places where people go to earn income. I forget the name of it. There's another site that a lot of the YouTubers and social media people use to gain extra income. They're shutting those down. And so they use all these third parties to basically coerce a narrative and using money. That was always our thing, is like, it's, hey, Trump can have his social media empire, but if you can't monetize it because Visa won't accept the credit card or PayPal won't accept the transaction, then you're going to have to bifurcate this economy even further. You're going to have basically, I don't even want to call it right wing, because look, all the lefties now are freaking out over this. We'll call it we'll have to have non-elite entities now competing against the elites. But it all comes down to the banking system, right? So the Fed will have a charter on the bank. They're not going to give you a banking charter because we don't like with whom you're dealing with, right? So it's going to come all the way down to now where the only really monetary policy that works is cryptocurrency.
Well, did you see that a Christian company replaced GoFundMe? I think they call themselves Give, Send, Go.
Yeah.
And they've raised $7 million in 48 hours for the truckers.
Yeah, I mean, these companies are like they're like taking they're becoming suicidal on behalf of the elites, right? So Twitter's not going to survive the stupidity in which they've done. They're not going to survive it, and Rumble is going to make YouTube probably less profitable going forward. Basically, Trump's going to take Facebook out, and so TikTok also is taking Facebook out. And so, these guys they're all taking one for the team, which is kind of scary. The CEOs don't care because they're all rich as sin, right? So, right. So what do they care about what's going on with the, with their companies? You know what, in Zuckerberg, I'll just go to my compound in Maui and dream up the next thing I want to do. So, yeah, so all the components are out there. The problem is, the reaction that the globalists are seeing around the world is that the people are not ready, and I think if you go back and you think about this thing, they thought with this pandemic they could get a control piece in place, have the pandemic go away, then to take credit for it, see what government can do for you, but it blew up in their face. And the same thing with like the stock market. The reason why they haven't really screwed the stock market up because they know people, even if you're not in the stock market, you pay attention to the news when the stock market's crashing because that usually means stock market crashing, I'm going to lose my job. So they've been trying to keep that up in the air. And the same with housing prices. People, hey, they're speculating on housing. They're not going to pay attention. But all this is coming to a head at the same time they botched the pandemic, and now people are going to give them no credit whatsoever. Even if there was credit to be earned, they're not getting it because of the way in which they handle things and just the tone out of these people. I mean, you ask Biden anything, and out of his mouth is just get vaccinated, just get vaccinated. Yes, Trudeau's like saying, it's nothing to do with science. He said, once you get vaccination rates up to where I want it, then I'll consider easing. No, I won't restrict you further, is what he said yesterday. And so these guys are, they enjoyed the power, but now they can't push the needle. Biden's agenda is dead. It's dead.
I mean, he's trying to build back better again. But can I ask a question? So he's going to Pittsburgh, right? And 2 hours before he gets there, a bridge collapses. And then he shows up there and he's pointing at like, this is why we need to build back better. Who blew up the bridge? I don't want to say. I mean, how did that bridge fall?
Oh, you know what? That bridge was scheduled for repair. They already had the money. Pennsylvania just chose not to spend it on the bridge. That's why you don't give the government money, because they just redirected it to something that's going to get them.
Well, that's what Louisiana did. Remember, Louisiana did that. They didn't fix the levees, and then here come Katrina. So
yeah, and then they blame Republicans. Yeah. But Build Back Better is going to be rebranded to Brokeback Mountain, Paul.
Cashless society is coming here, Bob. So, do you think whenever this, well, first of all, will it be a cryptocurrency? Will it be some kind of digital wallet or a cryptocurrency or a combination of digital cash?
It'll be digital, but it won't be crypto, because the crypto itself doesn't lend itself towards government control. So, all crypto means is that you're using encryption technology to keep somebody from stealing it or creating new ones, right? So it's going to be encrypted technology. But what we brand it like Kleenex crypto, it's not going to be that, because it's going to be centralized, not decentralized. And so that's the key. Cryptocurrencies are decentralized platforms, meaning that there's not one point of failure or one point of control. When the feds release this thing, it's going to be absolutely controlled in Washington, D.C. or in New York. So it's just going to be digital. And people now are like, whoa, they shut the truckers down on misinformation. Well, whoever owns the button determines what's information and what's misinformation. So I think it's set back their game here by 4 or 5 years.
I agree with you. And let me ask you this question. Okay, quantum easing has been going on, really turned on a lot when Obama went in. Okay, they never stopped, and they just went crazy since Biden's got in there. So when you move to a cashless society or a digital society, can you still quantum ease? I mean, do they just?
Oh yeah. They just look. It doesn't. They're doing it digitally today, Paul. Right. So the government overspends. Right. The banks actually buy the bonds. All right. And when the banks buy the bonds, they create digitally more dollars.
That don't.
And all the Fed does is move it onto their balance sheet to allow the banks to be free to do it again. So the Fed's is a massive warehouse of government overspending. See, that's why the United States government, as long as it's a reserve currency, simply cannot. Well, no government can really go bankrupt. Okay.
Yeah.
All they can do is create currency until nobody wants it. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's the understated government. Governments never go bankrupt. I hate when people use that. The United States is going to go bankrupt. Never can go bankrupt because they can print more dollars.
Yeah, they can never.
You get right, but they can have a currency nobody wants.
But if you have a $30 trillion deficit like we do, we can wring our hands about it, but we can write it off anytime we want to.
Well, it's already written off. Whatever the balance sheet is on the Federal Reserve, that's written off.
So there's really not a $30 trillion debt.
No, take 30 trillion divided by what the Fed's holding. That's already been monetized. That's gone. We're seeing that now in inflation, Paul.
That's right.
Yeah, so it translates into inflation. So as the Fed keeps building up their balance sheet, look, they can buy every when everybody talks, China's going to sell our debt and we're going to be screwed. No, Federal Reserve can just buy it all back in a minute. All in a minute.
Okay, so now that as we're hearing you explain to us how they've been operating from a macro position, from a central banker position, or the International Monetary Fund and these guys, do you see going forward, as far as you're teaching people how to trade, do you take that into account? Does that matter to you, what they're doing out there at the macro level, or do you just focus on the energy sector and the food sector, commodities, and it doesn't matter about the macro? How do you manage that?
Yeah, look, you always need to know what climate you're in, right? Even Jesus himself said, you better know when that fig leaf's coming out. And the same thing works in trading. So you need to know the macro picture. Because you want to look, you can't boil the ocean, right? I don't want to be filtering out 6,000 stocks every day. So I want to know: are we in an easing environment? Are we in a tightening environment? Are we in a devaluing environment? Are we in a tightening, basically dollar shortage environment? All that stuff matters to me, and also where are we in the political cycle? Who's in charge? Election coming up, stuff like that. All that stuff helps you, and then you just in human nature, right? So we know the governments are going to overspend. We know what happens when they overspend. So it was really easy for me to see, like, coming into the Biden administration, was the first thing was energy, not a problem.
Yeah.
Now that we know that they're not going to stop spending, we've been getting more and more into camp of the commodities, like, energy, uranium. Uranium had a great day today. Now we started to buy into copper. Right, we're buying into fertilizer because these are what's called secular shortages are starting to come into play. And just yesterday, Goldman Sachs said he said we have a shortage of everything coming. Everything.
Wait a minute! Whoa! Shortage of everything? You mean
shortage of everything?
Is that because supply chain disruptions?
Yeah, part of it's supply chain disruptions. Part of it's political. Part of it's economic. Look at Russia. Russia is pretty peeved at the West and getting into their space. Now, whether you agree with Russia or disagree with Russia, I always explain to people, you better put their shoes on to understand what's happening. Okay. Yeah. And then what would you do if you were them? And you can't say, well, they're immoral, so I can't really do it. No, you better understand, right? What the plan is. So Russia obviously hates the fact that NATO's United States is trying to pin them in.
Yeah, they don't like that. No,
Russia has a China problem. they really don't have as much freedom of movement as you think, or freedom to expand. They have to rely on too many things they can't control to make sure their trade happens. And also, look, their buffer, right, is basically Belarus, right, Ukraine, and so when we're trying to take Ukraine away from them, and half of Ukraine is Russian national people. Yeah. So they're saying to themselves, wait a minute, we're going to push American technology, within 300 miles of our capital.
No, they're not going to let that happen.
No mas. And I always explain to people, if people complain about that, I'm like, okay, what if they decide to put missile technology and fighters and bombers in Tijuana?
We wouldn't like that. No,
we wouldn't even let it happen.
No.
And so I said, so don't be mad that the Russians are mad. And I said, okay, so what does that mean? So Russia has very few options. For as much as people talk about Russia this, Russia that, I mean, they're really the size of Texas of their GDP.
Yeah.
All right. They can't really, if they didn't have nuclear power, we'd be ignoring them. Okay. Yeah. Okay. They have nuclear power, but they also have a lot of vast resource wealth. And so Russia sits back and they said, so what leverage do we have? So we can poke and poke and poke and poke, but we don't have to invade. We can send in our Spetsnaz guys, and we can get a counter-revolution going in that part of the world. We'll eventually get that part of Ukraine. But in the meantime, we'll say, you know what, Germany, maybe we'll give you natural gas. We're shutting down our fertilizer for 90 days. So knowing that Russia has these levers, and Russia's pulled these levers before. We made a lot of money when they shut platinum off for a couple months. It doubled in 60 days. So resources. So knowing these things are important, and they don't always show up in the numbers right away. Sometimes you have to get positioned. Like we've been positioning inside of fertilizer for a while and uranium for a while, and then the rest of the market catches up to the macro thesis. And then you get these explosive moves. And that's where we are at fertilizer. That's where we are with copper now. That's where we are with uranium. That's where we've been in energy. And all that's going to translate forward because they can't control it. The Fed can't control it, Paul, without basically causing an economic calamity.
Folks, it's Bob Kudler with us. Bob Kudler's with us from TradeGeniusAcademy.com. You could pick up the phone and call Bob and probably get in his school. I think that his academy can really help you get control of your own life. The number is 1-800-949-1408. That's 1-800-949-1408. Or just go to www.tradegeniusacademy.com or www.tradegenius.com. Bob, gold is $1,840 an ounce. Silver's around $23 an ounce. Bitcoin back up to 44,000. There's still a big ceiling, and if you go back to 68,000, I mean, there's a ceiling pretty big still waiting for you in Bitcoin. Gold and silver really has not moved much this year, or I should say in the last 6 months or so. Is that about right?
Yeah, last 6 months or so it started drifting higher, but yeah, I take your meaning. Yeah, well, just so you know too, that they're worried about basically a deflationary cycle. Everybody's talking inflation. I just want to there's a difference between inflation and rising prices, Paul. Okay, you can have rising prices, okay, and not have inflation, because all inflation is producing more monetary assets and velocity higher than your output. Okay, yeah. And so higher prices can happen, and you can be disinflated because oil is a tax. Okay,
isn't inflation in itself a tax in a way?
Well, yeah, but when you look at it from a pocketbook standpoint, unless wages are keeping pace with the price of monetary inflation, it's a tax. Yeah. And it shows up when people say, "Oh, oil is inflationary." I said, "Oh, contraire, oil is deflationary." You double the price of oil, which we have basically year over year. Yep. And I didn't get 100% raise, right? No. So coming out of somewhere else, okay? And then what happens then is, well, that industry is starting to suffer. So So that's what starts to happen. So you start getting these pushes like this on price, and everybody thinks, oh, it's going to be inflationary, and that's going to be helpful. And all of a sudden, you just roll over hard and becomes deflationary. Gold and silver have figured that out. Bitcoin's very, very liquidity conscious. And so liquidity's been draining out of the system here for the last 6 months. And that's why Bitcoin's struggling. And also it's past its halving. So, we can go another 6 months to a year where Bitcoin can actually fall back into the 20,000s range.
Whoa. Yeah, that would be painful for a lot of folks that are jumped in now. And and people, they don't have our insight. So, we help people navigate through that. And look, our money's where our mouth is. I own crypto, but you can trade crypto. And there's a way you can protect yourself with crypto. There's strategies that you can use. And just to let you know, too, when people say, join our school, we're more than just an education shop, too. So we'll actually give you our tools to use. And Brock's showing the attaboys here. I mean, you got people that are having a great year already. Folks, Bob Kudler is able to not just teach you how to do it, but give you the tools to do it, and create an atmosphere, chat room, where everybody can kind of help each other out. It's a team effort in a way.
Yeah, and we give trades out every day. So yesterday we told people to get in. Telling is a strong word. We told them we're getting into FCX, which is a copper thing. Well, it popped 8% today.
Wow.
People are in that, and so we just been getting people. We try to find a trade or two every day to share with our subscribers. We do it on the crypto side. We're not myopic. We're not dogmatic with crypto. We're asset gatherers, and so we try to tell people as clearly as possible. We don't want to tickle their ear, Paul.
No.
And tell people, well, crypto's going to 100,000. Well, it will at some point, but that doesn't help you 6 months from now. So we want to help you constantly build your asset base over time profitably, so that if you're a hodler, that you can withstand these moves. Bitcoin's done 5 or 6 of these 80% retracements and has gone on to next new highs. So as long as you believe that this rare asset is going to perform better than other assets over time, you want to own it. But if you want to trade it, it's spectacular trading tool. And not just Bitcoin, Solana's great, Ethereum, you have Matic that's doing great, Mana's doing great, Shiba, there's a lot of tickets out there, Shiba coin and such, so on and so forth. Crypto.com bought a real life company inside of its brokerage. So it's going to start generating cash. So there's a lot of ways in which you can play the crypto side. And we also do some really cool things in binary options. And you'll hear more about binary options because Crypto.com bought the binary brokerage. And so you're going to start seeing that. And binary options are a way to they're like kind of yes-no bets. Like if you bet on sports, you do a lot of high-low bets. And so that's binary. We help people do that too. We have a 5 million basically data point database to help people understand, the probabilities of getting into any of these trades. So my partner, he manages the crypto Bitcoin side. He handles the binary option side. We have databases to help us make right decisions in that area. And then on the stock side, where I spend most of my time, we have algorithms to help us in those areas, and they're killer.
Isn't it? I mean, when I first sat down and talked to you, you told me about how you study the weather. You see where there's big typhoons or cold winters or rain, monsoon rains, whatever, and you can figure out about what commodities may be affected, and you get out ahead of it and buy futures. Is that what you do? Is you teach the folks how to watch the key, things that can trigger things?
Yeah, look, everything, it's the butterfly effect, right? So if you know what's going to push what later, just like Solomon said, there's nothing new under the sun. So if X happens, Y happens. Look, we know almost every night between a certain period of time in the evening, the stock market goes up. Okay.
Algorithm. So you got algorithm.
Right. 80% of the time this thing happens. So, well, if you do it 10 times, you're going to win 8, right?
Yeah.
So, so those are the kind of things that, we find, we teach, we show, we trade. And it's not just that. We know the oil market, there's always a dip to buy first thing in the morning. We know the gold market the day before the employment report. We know from Wednesday to Thursday, they like to crash it. We know that, the second week of the months are usually the worst week of the month. We know the last 2 days of the month, the first 2 days of the new month are usually great. We know all those things. So, we help people not to make the mistakes that the data is telling you not to make. So, and then we translate that into trades, and we just help people be on the right side of the trades. And so that we help them, we educate them that way. And then we reinforce it by just constant conversations and seeing people with the trades. And what you're seeing, all those attaboys that Brock is looking at, those are the last 3-4 days, Paul.
Wow.
Those aren't like over 6 months. So
right.
I have 5 or 6 more from today. We
people are being successful. People are being successful. They're learning how to do it. They have the tools. You're constantly upgrading it. You're keeping people in, and you're giving clues out, recommendations. And Now, I'm going to ask you this question. Folks, again, go to TradeGeniusAcademy.com. That's www.TradeGeniusAcademy.com, or pick up the phone. Call them at 1-800-949-1408. That's 1-800-949-1408. Is the Great Reset, is that what's going to set up the cash? Is the cashless society happen when there's the Great Reset? Or is there a Great Reset?
Yeah, I think the Great Reset got blown up.
Okay.
I think gone? Look, I mean, he's rebranding Build Back Better. That was a flop. Remember, they were all hurting it. Boris Johnson abandoned Biden, right? He's ended the lockdowns. So I think that something new has to come onto the horizon, Paul, in order for them to try to create this cashless society. We're naturally slowly getting there just because, look, how much time do you use cash, right? Yeah. The government this year now is making people with Venmo accounts over $600 get their 1099s are being delivered. So they're trying to get people, they're trying to isolate people who are just using cash for everything. Okay, the national coin shortage, remember that thing? It's still out there because they don't want you to use coin. They're getting you away from, they want you to constantly work to the card, work to the card, work to the card. So they're gonna eventually get there. They may go cashless before they go digital. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, oh yeah.
And so that's probably what's gonna happen. I think politically though, it's not gonna start in the United States. So for us living here, just the nature of our political system keeps them from doing something so easily. So I think the genesis is obviously China started it, but the genesis of this whole thing is going to be in Europe. The European economic, whatever they call themselves, the parliament, are going to try to do some diktats around that area. And then I think you're going to see them try to impose it, because they keep talking about it over it like it's such a good thing. So they're going to probably go for it first. And then I think that we're going to probably see where it's going to go. and take it from there. But yeah, I think there's going to have to be another break. Look, they tried it. My joke has always been that, well, the pandemic didn't work, so now we have to have an asteroid or something come in. Remember, because these guys, because they don't have God in their life, they're trying to create heaven and earth, and they know, they can't get people. They can't get people to rally unless people are so fearful,
right?
That it requires all of us to get together to, sing Kumbaya and solve the problem.
Do you think that the governments overplayed their hand, the United States government and the world governments, that they've cried wolf too much, and now if there is something really catastrophic coming, everybody's going to be real skeptical with anything that comes out of any government right now. I don't care what it is, because they overplayed their hand on this. Look at Trudeau. Look at Justin Trudeau. If there was ever a guy that is absolutely tone deaf, but I thought after a while, I thought, no, he's not tone deaf. This guy is doing the bidding of his master, because it's just nobody's that stupid. He can't be that stupid.
No, I hate when people say that. Oh, the Fed's incompetent. No. They're driving a different agenda. Trudeau is just he's a stormtrooper for whatever this organization is, chaos or from Get Smart or whatever, he's that guy, and so is Ahern from New Zealand. They both say the same thing, and they both talk the same way. They're like robots. Morrison in Australia. I just find it ironic is the Five Eyes countries and Israel were the most into the lockdowns.
Yeah.
Now, I have a theory on that, Paul. My theory is that they know it was a bioweapon from China. They didn't know what they didn't know, because they know it was something bad because the United States funded it. Okay, these things they're not in dispute anymore, Yeah. And I think they're like, oh, did they release version A or version B? So that's why they rushed to get this spike protein out, because they knew that was going to be relatively effective against the virus. What they didn't know was, what they're learning now, is how effective and how long, right? And now they know. Look, if you're vaccinated but not boosted, you're essentially now unvaccinated from this thing. So, and I think they just freaked out. I didn't know what was coming down the line, And now, once they started down this path, they just can't pivot, right? And so now these guys never are wrong. They're political.
They're never wrong. They never admit it. Never.
So I think that's what happened. Yeah, and nobody believes him now. Trudeau's dead. I read a great article today on a guy that does game theory on Trudeau and his political base and stuff like that. They say he's powerful enough to get elected in these environments because low voting turnout, but he's not powerful enough to govern. No. And they said the truckers, whoever is advising the truckers, they said they performed magnificently in terms of they went local. Yep. So they caused problems in every province where they have local support of the local people. And they know that Trudeau, whatever he does, he's going to overplay it. And he's going to give more sympathy for the truckers. And if the truckers even lose, they win because they can just agree not to deliver anything to Ottawa. So,
so I mean, again, and oh, by the way, it wasn't like Trudeau didn't see this coming. 7 months ago, they were organizing 7 months ago. He could have got out ahead of this and tried to figure out a way to not get the truckers upset. The
good news is the United States, watching what happened in Canada, they're dumping the mandates left and right now.
Oh, man. And there's going to be this sucking sound out of Washington of a lot of people that's going to get thrown out in the street, I think, in the next election. That's if they can count the votes right. And that's another story. But anyway, Bob, go, folks, do it right now. Go to TradeGeniusAcademy.com. Just click over there, TradeGeniusAcademy.com. Get a hold. You know what? In this crazy world, there's still opportunities. Matter of fact, the crazier it gets, the more the opportunities are. It seems to be that way. So all you got to do is be out ahead of it and be smart, show up every day, learn, and you'll be successful. Have God in your life, you'll be successful. Bob, is that right?
That's right. I said, look, the worst thing that happened to me is I go to heaven.
So Bob, appreciate you coming out and being with us today. That's the best quote of the day. That's the best quote.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a good one. Bye-bye.